All right, everyone. Hopefully you can hear me. I'm not recording on the podcast yet, but if you're listening to the YouTube version, so it's not just silence and you don't think you're at the wrong place, let me just get up Twitter here and post the link. So hopefully everyone's doing well today. Thanks for watching the show. I'm Jack Allen. You'll have to hear me do this again, so just fill in time. Let me put this in here. History. All right. Okay. And then I'm going to hit record here. Just get my screen set up so I'm ready to rock. I just want to check how it looks here. All righty, cool. All righty. All right, now let's hit record. Record on this computer. All right, what's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Conspiracy or Just a Coincidence. I am live on YouTube. I am Jack Allen. Follow me on Twitter if you haven't already. Maybe you'll find if you're finding this for the first time. I'm honored you're gracing with your presence. So today's episode, this book. It's called The Origins of Intelligence Services, and it's by a father. I think it's by like a priest. Francis is a priest, I'm pretty sure. But this book was $1,000 on Amazon. And it's only paper copies. I usually associate that with like it being a book that has some good information on it because they don't want you to read it. A lot of conspiracy books, if you are like a big reader and search books, a lot of them are that are expensive, usually because they don't want you to print it. So this book, I didn't find it was like anything crazy like that. I thought it was a really good book, though. We're going to go over it. But basically, I wanted to read this because intelligence services and intelligence gathering has become, that is how empires survive. If you don't have a good intelligence service, if you don't have good spy network, your empire will crumble because people are trying to take it out, right? And this isn't a new concept. That's what this book talks about. It actually has brought down empires before it. If you're intelligence gathering and things that we take for granted, like how freely information is passed and how quickly it passed today in the ancient world and near recent world, they didn't have that chance or that kind of technology. So this is nothing new. They've only improved upon it now. I mean, our intelligence gathering service, as we all know, they're insane. They watch everything you do. I'm on a list. If you're listening, you're probably on a list, and they can find out anything they really want. But I just wanted to find out how far to go back, right? So let me just pull up my first photo here, just so we have it. All right. So we're going to start with like Egypt, Babylon, Persia, the Hittite Empire, all these things. Also, I did not apply myself in school at all. I don't know if you guys did. I know nothing. Like I've learned more in this past year and a half, 2 years of reading than all of my years of schooling. So maybe some of this to you guys is going to be like knowledge that you already had. I never had any of this. So I just find it all like it helps me put everything together and see the transformation of society kind of. So they wanted every culture that started, they wanted to expand their civilization, right? All through the test of time have expanded their, hopefully you guys can hear me well, wanted to expand their empires. That's like what empires do, right? So we're going to start with Egypt, because that's like one of the first common known empires that I guess we have some information on, which we're going to base this podcast on, that chronologically everything is correctly. So you have like Thutmose, 1500 BC, pushed into Syria and Euphrates, 1580 to 1350, empire extended to Libya, Ethiopia, 1319 to 1200. That was the Second Empire. That was the 19th dynasty. And basically, they spent their days defending what their ancestors conquered, right? Then Assyrians took over, then the Persians. So when you take over people, you obviously need to learn information about the new people that you conquered, right? But back, so this is ancient Egypt in the ancient worlds. So the one story was that the pharaoh, he sent his best warriors into town concealed as merchants on donkeys, and this is like where they get the story Alibaba and the 40 Thieves, and he used them for information gathering, right, as kind of like spies. And governors of new kingdoms, they would get info of their constituents. The king messengers, they were sent to collect tribute with troops. So all along with this cash flow, they're collecting informations. And like I said, merchants are also key info gatherers because as they communicate with foreign or farther away people, you learn things. And again, information, everything's traveling slow. So people were actually good at talking face to face then and probably required it. And you could gain information this way. And during this time, the Phoenicians, they're dominating the sea. And the Egyptian rule was decreasing when the power of the Phoenicians were growing. And Assyrians probably utilized this Phoenician sea. They're traveling all over doing trades, all those things. So they're big information sources. And there was like a border fortress on the edge of their lands and for Egypt to collect information from even farther away places. Because again, there's no reference like of a far away. It's just something that we take for granted, right? We know where everything is. We know we can look how to communicate. Then it's like an alien, dude, right? It's just like an alien. So the Egyptian, there's this one story, they were befriending these cattle herders. They're like a nomadic tribe, and they're because of their far travels, they have a lot of information on. And so Thutmose, he's about to sacrifice, and he gets told that these Africans are going to plan to revolt that he recently conquered. And his soldiers discover the rebels' plot, and they even made a statue in commemoration of these cattle herder. Akhenaten, he also has the same thing. He has correspondence with this Egyptian of Asiatic possessions. It's the oldest diplomatic corresponding in history. Here they do like double dealing, like spies, double agents, all this stuff like that. It's just, yeah. But so the Egyptians, they were fighting the Hittites, and they wanted to conquer Syria and Palestine, all these towns. Their intelligence, they were capturing Egyptian vassals, getting information up, and eventually they end up losing Syria and could only strike a peace deal to stop them. And so the Hittite intelligence was much greater than the Egyptians. So he hid his army, and eventually, like the pharaohs catch two deserters, they beat them. They told them what their army was. But again, another thing that we just take for granted. If you could hide your military better than your enemy, you're going to do much better. You can completely take them off guard. So, but eventually this was like important. Egypt realized the importance of information gathering. They set up an Egyptian intelligence service, and they also realized like the importance of an absolute monarchy. And he also set up a secret police. But this absolute monarchy thing that's going to come up again, and I've done a few shows recently on the absolute monarchy, how it's biblical, and I'm not like at the point to say yet that is but if your goal is to expand an empire, if your goal is to be the American empire, the United States empire, with a democracy that's votes are all counted the same, it's not going to work out. And we're going to see that like it happened. It was almost the decline of Egypt. But Joseph from the Bible was called a vizier, and the vizier was like a postmaster. He had messengers. He was a judge. This was one of like the earliest forms of a secret police in an empire. Eventually, Babylonia emerges. They learn from the Egyptians. Again, they're just building on information they have. They learn from the Egyptians on how to run a smooth empire, of course, with their own ideas and empire. They wrote letters to kings in neighboring areas to keep an idea of like how they were doing. And the Syrians built upon this system the importance of information. The Syrians are the precursors to Rome. They focused on having great roads and bridges, much as the Romans would do. They made a special royal messengers to secure rapid intelligence from all the areas. And unlike mailmen that we have in America who are napping a union, don't need to go very fast. If they were lazy or incompetent, obviously there was severe punishment because this is how the empire survives. Royal scribes would travel with the military to see how long it would take an army to get to each town, checkpoint on nicely built roads. And I know this sounds like so basic. Like obviously, they're traveling on horses. All these things. It's so slow, but these things are so important for an empire, and you understand that. Like if you don't know how long it takes, and you're walking because your whole army is not on horses, and there's problems in one town, or in one location, you would need to know how to communicate, or if you need help, anything like that. So you can see the importance of this. The Assyrians, they got even better. They started communicating with fire signals. So every 2 hours, a new messenger would take the place of the old, and they communicated via fire, so you would know what was happening, if something needed help, all those things like that. And then Assyrian agents were also placed in areas that were not under Assyrian control. And we see this today with the spy, right? But they would be collecting information for the monarch. They also utilized the merchants. They love deserters of like neighboring empires because they're like, please take me in. Like I have information. They loved them. They were very active, like in Armenia, the Assyrians, and they would again reward those deserters with land and finances. So you could see how beneficial that would be. They would even punish any anti-Assyrian propaganda from the Babylonians. So already we see this early form of propaganda being put out. And it's just amazing how these tactics have not changed at all, right? Anybody that was like questionable of loyalty, you wouldn't want to be that guy. We'll just say that. Kind of like McCarthy's communist witch hunt, which was more correct than it was. But if they had any whiff of that, they would send spies to investigate further. And this was so important. Assyrians learned how to stop revolutions out as well. And this was crazy. So they would force migrate thousands of people to other districts of the empire, effectively squashing any revolutions before they began. Because back then, when people communicated with each other in large groups, developed friendships, bonds, like, man, I think we're paying too much in taxes, or these soldiers keep, taking my daughters, or whatever you have you. Well, Syrians just say, all right, you guys are going over here, and they would move to put you with a whole new group of people, and now you don't know who to trust. Really brilliant, honestly, because this totally would make sure nobody could organize. Kind of like as effective as today as the feds posing as like revolutionaries on the internet. But anyway, so the heirs of the Egyptians, Babylonians, Assyrians, Hittites were the Persians. And again, they built on the previous civilization, and they've reached far islands. Now they created the office Eye of the King. So let me see if I have the next photo here. Persian Royal Road System. So here's the road system. You see it's pretty far, goes pretty far here. So they created the Persian Royal Road. It moved the capital to the center of the empire, and you can see why. They created fixed stations on their roads, all those things like that, because they needed to be able to communicate better, right? You want to have your capital in the center of your empire, so you have information from all around. So they created a secret service hierarchy, rewarded good information. King Cyrus just improved the system invented by the Assyrian kings. Now we see another advancement, the using of night relays and day relays to get info as quick as possible. For an ordinary passenger to travel the empire, it would take you 3 months and 3 days. See, I know this is sideways, but you understand. You can either turn your head like this or not. But anyway, so it would take 3 months and 3 days, and the Greeks were in awe of the Persian postal service and how fast information could travel. Spies were even hidden as females. Again, we see this on the internet today when, like, some old Fed is on the internet posing as a girl that's like a alt-right figure or something like that. They do this stuff, right? Nothing is like new, and they've just built, the technology may have changed, but the same tactics remain exactly the same. So sorry, guy. I thank you for the comments of people listening. My notes and the organization I have here is I'm unable to look at it at this second. All right, Persian Road. And the Persians were able to dominate the Greeks a long time because of this information passing that the Greeks just did not have. They were these independent city states, and until Prince Philip and the beast, the goat, Alexander the Great, they dominated them, who eventually, Alexander, as we know, got revenge on the Persian Empire. And Alexander's army would utilize the Persian roads built by the Assyrians. He kept the same traditions in place. I put a picture of Alexander the Great because he's such a goat. Here he is, traditional, awesome, badass dude. Yeah, he just built. So if you guys don't know Alexander the Great, he conquered, let me see if I have that photo. He conquered like so much stuff, right? Kingdoms of succession. Yeah, here. Seems like a little, there's a 2-part photo, but he conquered everywhere, guys. Like he was a monster, dude, right? Just a great, but he utilized the roads that these previous empires built. And his short reign, he died on the way home. And he had to split his empire into 3 great monarchies. And again, the monarchy is the key. If you want a successful empire, you need to have a monarchy. That's like the one thing I can like almost say, I'm not certain on many things, but pretty certain on to be a successful empire. If that is your goal for expansion, a democracy will not work. So there's the Egypt, that was Ptolemy, Asia under the Seleucid dynasty, in Macedonia. Ptolemy and Seleucid, Selecud, based on absolute power of kings. They were foreign to the population, so at this time, the populations kind of found this odd. So they tried to bring in as many of their natural Greeks as possible. Just like if we conquer another land, if you're trying to rule that land with foreign people, cultures, everything is so different. And so most of them did well, but the Seleucids, they had a very diverse race, and they were pretty much subjugating them. So they needed to stop revolts. You need a very solid intelligence apparatus to keep that population in check. They also utilized elephants from India, which was awesome. Could you imagine riding an elephant to scare your people? So Alexander the Great. So he had post offices. He had special couriers that would be rewarded with farms by the king, who would live very close to the post office. There was no private letters of communication that were expedited, but it would happen 3 times a day. So 3 pickups. So always moving horses. So you can imagine that's a lot of people required to have this. So clearly they valued it, right? Clearly they valued it. Xenophon, he was Greek military. He was the first to really create a military intelligence. He would send spies to get info on troops. He would find out which positions were best to take, the strengths and weaknesses to protect against an ambush. So intelligence of the Roman Empire. And this is why I'll see why I learned this was like brand new to me, but it went along with everything that I've been reading recently. All right, I don't know why I don't, but anyway. So there's about like 3 parts of the Roman Empire, okay? The first part is the Republic period, and it's a lack of interest in intelligence. It's early Rome. They're expanding, but it's like they're just overpowering them, right? And it was also only after the neighbors were weakened could the Romans really like begin overtaking like the Etruscans and all these other people. And they basically like had like no plan, right? They would just go in, beat the hell out of them because they were great fighters, great warriors, would die for their country. And they were just, honorable guys. They looked at spying with disdain. So they had 0 spy network. All the Roman Republic, not even a fire, no smoke signals. They relied purely on allies. They had no special agents, no courier service until the Punic Wars with the Phoenicians. And Phoenicians, I know if you've listened to my shows, a lot, all of them, I did one on the Knights Templar and the Phoenicians. Some people believe that's where Freemasonry stems from. They were very, very secretive. They even spread to Carthage. They would write secret info on wood, cover it in wax to look like a wax tablet. So again, we're seeing information. They had messengers land by sea. So yeah, so the Romans, also what they would do is they would travel. If anyone they didn't know, didn't look familiar, they would intercept them, interrogate them, all those things like that. Forged letters, and eventually the Romans caught on to this idea. They stole, that was like very important. So you had those awesome wax seals back then with their rings, and that was individualized for someone of power. The Romans stole one, and they started using that to like put on letters to write forgeries. So that was pretty like a wild thing. So the Romans are slowly learning the secrets of like their enemies, about how important it is to have an intelligence apparatus. But like their Senate people, it wasn't powerful enough to hold an empire. Like they would travel, they thought they were better than everybody, they were wealthy, kind of like our politicians today, just total assholes. And they would just be walking, be like, I'm going to take your horse. And they would take their horse. So obviously, that wasn't something that you would enjoy, right? It's imagine like if Joe Biden came up to you and said, give me your car, you can imagine how you would feel about that, right? So stuff took forever, as you can imagine, with that kind of systems. The Romans would deliver mail and tax info via slaves. Obviously, these guys are like fearing for their life, so they would go relatively fast. But how much value do you have in this if you're using a slave to do it, right? Not very much. Eventually, they started getting more value, they would put feathers in their hat, like Hermes, the Hermes great god or whatever. That I found like very funny. Like I think the Yankee Doodle had a feather in his hat as well. But yeah, so Rome, though, they had all those amazing roads. They were only used for troops, though, not for info, no postal service during the whole Republic period. So what happens? Well, civil wars start breaking out. So Roman intelligence starts at the end of the Republic, the first century BC. It was unheard of expansion they're having. They're on the way for world domination. I don't know if this is they're on the world domination, right? They have North Africa, Spain, Gaul, the East, Macedonia, Greece, and all these areas are filled with new Roman merchants, tax collectors, and the Romans, for some reason, finally have that dawn of the light go off, like, wow, we could use these people to collect info, right? And new lands, they became very wealthy because of the Roman merchants, and they kept worrying, like, are these spies? And the merchants, they were even banned in certain ports, like these treaties that happened from the Punic War. Like they would stop if an emergency or to make sure, and they would just wouldn't allow the Roman merchants in. So a Rome guy went up to Spain. He started putting on their garb, conversing with the barbarians, come back with information. So again, hiding, dressing up. Allies also provided Roman intelligence on hostile neighbors, probably because they wanted, just like our allies provided information, what's going on in the Asia and in Russia. So it's key to have allies next to your enemy. And then it's also key for them to be friends with somebody else. So private enterprise really spurred the intelligence, as they would pay for the information because they wanted to collect riches in foreign lands. So you're a rich merchant. You're not just going to blindly do business in an area that you may get killed and not get to come home. So that's kind of what really started it. Caesar was a Roman intelligence kind of guy. He wanted all the info before he went somewhere: history, economic situation, geography, what's the terrain like. And he would gain all he could about like the German tribes, their habits, food, they lived a simple life, clothing, size up the endurance of the German, like time of year that was best to attack. The Germanic tribes, they were also intelligence gatherers. They would stop travelers, inquire about where they were going. Caesar even admitted how good their intelligence gathering was and how it ruined some plans. And Caesar, he would work and write on his campaigns, super swift travel. He employed private citizens who ran this kind of business, no state post, which I found like interesting. Like even then, Caesar realized that a DMV ran by the state was not going to work out. Yeah, we tried again. But so their post system, their travel system was all private enterprise. So Caesar wanted absolute power. The Republic was aristocratic, controlled. They wanted him to fail. Sounds like right now, right? That's all. They're aristocratic. They're controlled. All the republics of the European world have been the same exact thing. They wanted the monarch. They wanted the one leader in charge to fail because then they have the chance at the riches. And so during the Civil War, Caesar knew public opinion and mindsets were super important. So he made pre-planned posts that when they were winning, that he would send the info. So and then he would let the attackers know that they were losing. So like his forces would get like, yeah, we're winning. The guys they're fighting in these civil wars would be like, oh my God, they already lost over there. Like I want to go home to my family tonight, right? So brilliant. He would send propaganda behind enemy lines to manipulate the drive of these people. So now civil war's down. Caesar realizes the East, which is used to the divine monarchship, and he says, forget it, dude. I'm going to be absolute ruler. Nobody else can do this but me, another goat. And the West wasn't ready for this. Or more likely, the West, I mean, people love Caesar, right? He was, again, like people are gravitated toward natural leaders. And I think like most of these empire creators that we see of the ancient world, it wasn't just like they're great. It wasn't because of just violence that they put on the people, right? People wanted to follow them. People, no one can get behind our senators or our Joe Bidens of the world. They same this back then. Real leaders inspire not like followers. That's kind of like why I'm not saying Trump was a great leader, but he knew how to rally troops behind him. Same with other Hitler, the Japanese emperors, all the what's his name in China, Xi Jinping, and guys. I mean, obviously there's a violence aspect in there, but the violence isn't so strict that they would revolt if they hated him. Does that make sense? I know that might be like difficult to let. Well, think about, chew on that. Think about that. So he's the absolute ruler, blah, 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 imperial period. So Caesar's heir and adopted son, Octavius Augustus, learned the lesson. His rival was Antony. Antony went to Egypt hoping to reconquer Rome as divine king with Cleopatra. See, I didn't know that. I know those names, but I didn't know that. That's how. So it was Caesar's heir versus Antony. He was the last scion, or she was the last scion of the Ptolemies from Alexander the Great. Again, didn't know that either. That was mind blowing. So she was like, part of the Alexander the Great Empire, just like a different area. He lost to Octavian. The couple committed suicide, that great story. And Octavian restored the Republic, but he didn't really restore the Republic. It was really a monarchy with a fake republic. And again, to have a world empire, this was the one ruler. So because his only goal is to expand, and information is key, right? Obviously. So he remembered having lack of information as he's ruled over past into like things that would happen, battles and stuff like that. So Antony realized how unreliable his messenger service when he lost a friend in a battle. And the enemy profited because of his lack of info. So Antony starts putting messenger roads to do a relay as opposed to the Republic, when this great idea of one guy rode all the way to a super far location. So he realized that people could be interrogated. Then he switched up to animals to traveling because he realized people could be like caught and interrogated. So he switched up to horses or other animals trained to ride the information because, as we know, animals cannot talk. Oh, here's my next photo. Here's a horse carriage of ancient Rome. He also had a fire police which maintained the safety on the streets, keeping your people safe, happy, all important things, right? That's why America will just continue to spiral downwards, because we're lazy, we're fed, no one's at our door kind of thing. As new rulers came in Rome, the postal service continued. Every kilometer is a new station, all by state budget, personal mail mule, lodges at every post, repairs for other state taxes. oxen for equipment. There was weight specifications. Also implemented was sending propaganda with the merchants into towns to convince them that he was an amazing leader and to like get their feedback and feeling. So I found that like really mind blowing. Like even back then they had like truck weigh stations to make sure that your equipment wasn't going to break the wheels or hurt the ox. Just found that, I don't know, very smart, right? Very smart. These guys back then, they weren't dummies. We all know that. Years later, Marcinus becomes emperor. He employs secret agents to spy on private lives of his soldiers and high officials, which was probably a very good idea. The secret agents were the ones spying on the Christians, arrested them, and it was so the court, which was purpose of military intelligence of foreign enemies, then became like a secret police force, policing population, spying on movements of like people that are people like us, right? Controlling state posts to spy on mail. They would open, it was comparable to like the Gestapo of Hitler, right? Both military like pattern, but they eventually use it to their own people. Exactly what they're doing to us today. They're spying on everything we do. This is to maintain, especially like an empire that's crumbling. This is so key to know what your own people are thinking. And granted, it's much easier now with the internet, but they've been doing it since ancient times. So the Republic was causing secrecy issues because degeneracy will ruin empires. It's ruining its empire. It's ruined empires before it. So the guys in this kind of fake republic, they're sleeping with slaves and telling whoever they're sleeping with, I'm sure it didn't matter it was degenerate as heck then, so they were doing anything, but they would tell secrets, and these people have no money. They're going to talk whoever pays them for info. So Diocletian, I'm butchering all these names. I apologize for you, my avid people that know Rome. I'm sorry. I'm a newbie. I don't know it all. He became he was 284 to 305. He became the absolute monarch, and the Eastern beliefs came more into Western life, as it's the same empire at the time, information, beliefs, travel. And he realized you cannot rule without strict surveillance of your subjects. Founded new special service, military information gatherers. It was not as good as the Greeks in the foreign lands. He had some secret agents in a few lands, but it wasn't as imaginative as the Greeks. I think the Greeks would like dress up as women, all these things to do to get information. So Byzantine intelligence service. So as we know, the western part of Rome kind of collapses a little bit or moves east. So it's your heir rather than emperors appointed by God, not only to reign, but to protect and extend the Christian religion, because obviously Christianity is introduced and you can be like appointed by God, but you're not a demigod. The Byzantine political ideology was Christian Hellenism. They saw the need, obviously, to continue their intelligence service. They had a state post. New with their state posts, they allowed bishops to travel on state roads paid for by the state, and because the pagans were complaining about taxes. So you can change the saying to three sayings or three things certain in life: death, taxes. I don't know what the other one is, but people will always complain about taxes, right? I think that's funny. So Emperor Theodosius, 379 to 395, he changes to just the state because people don't like, paying for bishops that are not worshiping them. He also created like an emperor endowed pass to travel on the state. So you only got so many people allowed per year. It was all expense paid, free travel through the empire. He had inspectors to make sure weights were correct, animals, taxes, food allocated. Because again, you're traveling 20 miles in a day, you're hungry when you get to the next rest stop, and you need to have food. You need to be able to, what if you lost all your food? What if you had no water? All those things. You get there, you're on your last legs. So all these places had to be stocked with certain menus, prostitutes at the hotels, all provided by the state. The imperial post, though, had no private letters, though bishops, they would sneak private letters into like their business letter to make sure they'd arrive quicker. People just always take advantage, don't they? They always do. So yeah, that's the Byzantine Empire. Justinian, he had a good post. One day would normally take 10. Ugh, I don't know what that no means. But each station had 40 horses. They could do 24 miles in 24 hours, which is pretty good, right? 24 miles in 24 hours. They have 40 horses at each of the rest stops. That's what I'm calling them that. But they're like mail info passing. It was appreciated by the kings that were appointed in the provinces, even barbarian kings. Roads, they eventually get ruined by the Slavs, the Lombards, the Persians, and the post continues, but it's just at a slower scale. So the secret police, Diocletian, he had tons of corruption of his imperial police force. He tried to suppress it. He needed another organization to keep the peace and order of the empire. And you kind of see that like today, right? We have the CIA, we have 20 letter agencies. They all definitely are probably utilized by certain power centers. I'm sure they they probably step out of line, right? So you need another one to check the other one to check the other one. And you can see how a monster is created. So Constantine created this new organization. They would live at the palace, be at the disposal of the emperor. They wore a military uniform divided into 5 grades with promotions. He had hundreds. It was reduced to 17 with Julian, and it was not easy to get in. You had to be moral, have ample ability, social status, 5 years to prove your worth. They had the best mounts, best horses ready at all times. They would eat their food on horseback. I mean, these were like the Navy SEALs of the Byzantine Empire. He also had a head of imperial posts, inspect people traveling, selected from his new organization, 1 agent per province. So you can see, very powerful guy. Very powerful guy. He also had a special group taken from the palace guard to be a James Bond-like assassin, dispose of dangerous people. Like one elite family wanted to kill the emperor, their servant, who was a eunuch. Eunuch is when you chop off your giblets, which I guess it was like valued back then. Like, and I guess that makes sense. You know, people back were further removed from that now, more animalistic. You remove a male's testosterone, he's much less unpredictable, much more logical, I'd assume. Or maybe that was the thinking, at least. So the eunuch ratted on them. He got promoted to this special group. Another 2 power families were getting riches off Arabs in exchange for that, for letting them get some victories. Like they would get riches for giving information to the Arabs. So again, let me just finish this thought. And then they tried to take out the emperor. At church, it fell. But then the flip side, the emperor had a half Arab guard who he had him pretend he was giving them, the Arabs, information and betraying them. He went as far as to pretend to chase this half Arab guard all the way, like he was riding back to enemy lines. Like, I just think of like a movie. Arrows are flying. They kill his horse. They kill the half Arab's horse. He escapes behind Arab lines. You know, he maintains his cover. What I was saying is that we have people that constantly they've sold out America for riches. So again, it's the same stuff that we just see. People have not changed, just technologies have. I mean, all these, like Joe Biden's fan, I don't mean to be hating on Joe Biden, so I don't really care, but his son Hunter has given American God knows what, meetings, secrets, money, tax revenue, all to increase their wealth. And that's what people did back then too. Insert spy's photo. Hopefully you can see this photo. Why is it a spy? Oh, this is like a spy photo. Explaining the plot, spies of the emperor. Okay, yeah. Many stories of these spies, but you saw double agents. Another defector escaped with the Arabs. They wrote him a secret letter to try and convince them that he was playing them. He was like thrown into prison. The secret service of the state was called the agentes. There was no central state police. Police were private and organized, which was an interesting thought. I wonder how that would go now. That's like where it looks like we're heading, right? Defund the police, anti-police sentiment. And I'm not like a fan of cops at all, because people that want power are the last ones that should have power, or people that don't know what else to do, so they become a police officer, are like the worst people to have as a police officer. But so yeah, so private police were police was private and organized. They would arrest traitors, tax avoiders. Public order was the army in Egypt. I don't know what that means. I'm sorry again. 6th century chiefs of the villages had local police to arrest trespassers. If the police would refuse, the military would get involved. There was like a night watch. And again, back then, I can only imagine the sense of like camaraderie. Tribalism is so huge in us, right? It's just so, it's like integral to our being. You just want to be a part of this group, whatever it may be. We all do. It's innate. And so they had night watchmen that were probably proud to watch their village, to keep their family safe, to make sure everyone stays okay. That's probably like something that's missed now, right? Like if you see something bad, maybe a few of you would call the police, but would you get involved? I don't even know if I would, right? If I saw the one time I was getting beaten up in Philadelphia, when I was during my struggling days. I'm going to post a photo on my 4-year celebration in 3 days so you can see how horrible I looked. I was 130 pounds, 140 pounds. Anyway, I'm walking, and two like 14-year-olds, they ride past me on a bike, start beating me up, trying to take my horrible cell phone. Someone says, "Hey, get off," and she ends up yelling at me because they said I called them the bad word you're not allowed to say, which I did not. I don't know how I got on this topic. Oh, night watch. They would watch dikes and irrigation. Shepherds would watch animals, people as well, all kind of informed police. In more rural areas, though, they had to use your townsmen. They had their own watchtowers. They would pay for like a kind of guard. And then Justinian in 539 created ICE. Like our ICE, I don't know what ICE stands for. Yeah, I don't know, but they had created one in Byzantine. They would send back undesirables. So again, if America cared about its empire, there's so many things we wouldn't do, but you would protect your borders. You wouldn't allow people that are going to hurt your people, that is your empire, right? It's like basic. Romans knew that. Everyone knew that. They always questioned outsiders, because why would you allow them in if their goal is cause harm? You wouldn't let them in. They would arrest any suspicious person roaming the streets, whipping him, public trial next day. I love the whipping part. You should do that again if you're somewhere you're not supposed to be. It was tested by a higher up in the Byzantine Empire. He went to a brothel, arrested on his way home. He tried to bribe the first guard, tried to bribe the second guard. They said no. And then, he bribed 2 guards. So they got him. He's walking. He bribes the one. He says, keep going. Bribes the next one, keep going. And then the third guard, he refused to accept his bribe because his patriotism of his empire was more important than money. And they punished the first 2 and rewarded the third. Think of today, dude. Would anybody stop like an attack on, you understand? Wouldn't happen. They don't want you to have loyalty to your country because of that reason. So they can just destroy it while you say, "Oh, that I'm mean. If I don't accept everyone, I'm mean." And that's how you know that they don't want this to be successful. They want to break this down and just destroy it. So intelligence in the borderlands and in enemy territory, obviously very important. So inside territory, state post, imperial information would come quickly. So not so much on the outskirts. So 9th and 10th centuries is when we have the good old Arab and Persians causing issues. 9th and 10th, right? So we're about to start crusades. So special guards called the Acurite. They were the finest soldiers. They would alert trouble in the borderland, prevent spies, secret agents, collect intelligence. They would harass like the They would take prisoners. They'd watch out for hostile neighbors. They stationed along a poster on the border with the fire signaling. My next photo. I don't know. I wish I knew how to turn these photos, but I don't. So, so here are the beacons. So you see these things, all these beacons coming down. So they had them all around the front of to watch and communicate. It was a hazardous, adventurous life to live on these frontier, the borderlands. It was like they would make stories and epics out of it and do plays to inspire the younger generation. So think almost like a Western, like these gunslinging, but bow slinging, Greek fire throwing, just men, traditional, badass, ancient men. Until the 13th century, they paid no taxes. But unfortunately, frequent invasions, they had to change these intelligence tactics. So they put fire on the hills, so knew from far reaches could reach the emperor within an hour. Now that's quick, right? That is quick in this time, an hour. A mathematician also made 2 synced clocks, so they could know when an invasion began. So if it happened, the emperor has his clock, he sees the fire, he knows it takes an hour, so it started then. So he's got to get people quick. And they also were fighting on 2 fronts, and they were able to move their people, through to get to the other front. Byzantine road map. I guess this is the road. Well, for everyone listening, not many people watch on YouTube, so these are just pictures from the book. So I just try to save a few. So some of these are the fires. When it looks like a little star, that's a fire beacon. That's a fire beacon. Just so you people know, they're pretty far away, but they must be able to see it. Must have been a big old fire. So Arabs, they're gaining more and more Byzantine land. They would use Christians and others to get information. In times of peace, they would have the embassy in enemy territory to keep tabs. I just found that interesting too, that even back then they had embassies in a criminal, in an enemy's lands, enemy territory. And obviously these guys are keeping lots of tabs on any info they can gather. They had secret agents in Bulgaria, and among the Arabs, some were possible double agents. One tax collector suspected of embezzling ran to the Arabs. He converted, tax collector, he was embezzling, from Byzantine, ran to the Arabs, converted, but he dyed his hair black, and when you washed it, he had the information that he gathered revealed. I don't know, but it's very creative, right? Very creative. People are hiding information on wax tablets. They're sneaking information through their clothing. Just all stuff it's that cloak and dagger stuff that Allen Dulles utilizes with the OSS in the beginnings of the CIA. So again, I know I'm going to keep saying the same thing. It's nothing new under the sun here. 10th and 11th century, they finally built up a navy in Byzantine, though the army was the main focus, which would be the demise. Perfect. So each of these boats, they would have 100 to 300 oarsmen. There were smaller, speedier ships as well, even smaller for spying. The middle-sized ones, they had ramming spurs and catapults that would launch the Greek fire, which was a state secret they guarded. That's a key example of intelligence that they needed to keep in. I'm sure they killed many people for worrying about spilling that secret. To spy on the Arabs, they would use their small spy ships, and before the expedition in 9/11, they would float off the Syrian coast to try and discover plans of the Muslims. Yeah, just crazy, right? And if this is boring to you, I apologize. I'm trying to make it exciting, much more exciting than history class. I found it it was a great base to build, again, what's so relevant today. And we are enslaved because of our military intelligence apparatus, which is huge, which can do literally anything. They have access to your webcam. They're watching us at all times, all those things. And I'm not saying that as like a paranoid conspiracy person. It's just the truth, right? Just the truth. So I have two photos here. This is a photo of like their spy ships and the Byzantine. Cool photos. And here is Great Fire. I don't know if that's this one. But just so you guys are listening, it's like these, old photos drawn of what's going on. Just, I look like I could draw this though, but that's okay. We'll let it go. And I'm a horrible artist. Naval operations, they would use the different color of flags and smoke for signals. Again, probably like earth shattering at that time. Ports were guarded by military, but at 3 points: the Black Sea, Crimean Peninsula, and the Red Sea. Entrance from the Atlantic to Mediterranean, super strong intelligence center. They wrote whole descriptions about people like the Persians. And I'm just going to read like two of these descriptions just to show you how well they documented. Great love for country, ready to serve, fierce rulers, patient, do all unpleasant labors which imposed on them, order, haste, cold and rain sap their strength. Sounds like a Pokemon descriptions. The Franks, praises their one for freedom, not as hardy as the barbarians. Do not endure long marches or hunger or thirst. Make long battles, will grow tired of war, can be easily surprised. Little unity, unorganized, fall into confusion, give up with offer of money. But they have all these, I could read them all, but you get the idea. So they took very good notes, very good notes. This is a spy coming back to a bunch of these long trumpets playing. Diplomatic intelligence. This was the sole protection against new surprises. The most dangerous opponent was Persia since the 3rd century. The Huns weakened Persia, which I think we'll get into, but attacked 4 cities. They signed a peace treaty. The Arabs violated the deal with an invasion. They tried buying them off. Byzantine, I'm sure you guys know I'm talking about that, but they signed another peace treaty. Sorry, let me get a drink. Okay. Persia controlled they tried paying them off, all these things. Persia controlled the Silk trade. This is highly sought after. So Byzantine had to make nice with these guys. Eventually, 2 Persian monks, they find out how to make it. They snuck out the eggs of the silkworm in a cane and gave it to the Roman Empire. Damn, dude, those 2 monks, I bet people were pissed at them, but what an awesome way to hide it. They befriended the Turks, the Mongolian Empire. They were backstabbed. They were trying to get another route to China, not through Persia. They went to Crimea, which was the border of Byzantine. Still problems there today, which is also weird. And they had some Orthodox Christian hordes living there, providing a buffer from the Mongols, but had many posts watching for the attacks. They also used religion to bolster up this area against the rising Russians. This was wild. So we hear so much about the Khazarians, how the Khazars are part of this, I think Rothschild, those kind of people are Khazarian. So the Kagan of the Khazars, the king, accepted the Jewish faith, but allowed Christians in his empire to profess their own religion. And this is why Khazars are Jewish. It was because of this time, they're, in the middle of the Byzantine and Russia and all these areas, and somehow they get missionaried, by the Jewish religion, and they accept that's why Khazarian, they call it the Khazarian Mafia, right? An Office of Barbarian Affairs was created to monitor the nomads and the Khazars and other groups, and this functioned until the 11th century. It's monitored foreign envoys, would transport them, razzle and dazzle them when they would come into the city to persuade them that the city was invincible. They would have see tapestries, gold, churches, thrones, guards to make sure they stayed in the path. Kind of think like North Korea. So they're guiding these foreign envoys to all the good parts of their city. So when they go home, they're wow, they're powerful, right? We can't overtake them. Oh, they're very wealthy. They're very whatever. And that's like a North Korea tactic, right? They do that too. Special attention was given to possible new allies like these Russian princess. They made sure to show her how amazing the Christian religion was and how it worked. They would send imperial guards gifts once a year to their allies or soon to be allies to keep them happy. Kind of again, this might be like basic stuff for. I'm like, well, yeah, they send them gifts. They want to be their friend, but like that's all these tactics are just utilized and grown upon. I'm sure back then, like, why would you send a gift once? Like the Byzantines made sure they did this. They wanted to make sure that their allies that were on the outskirts of them took care of them, protected them, would remain nice. But very good idea. Very good idea. We do the same thing in my company. We mail like our clients gifts. So Constantine, he would study each of the neighboring allies in history, write all this stuff down to pass on info to his offspring and how to deal with each group. Took very good notes. Let me see here. This is intelligence of the Arab and Muslim empires. Let me see what page I'm at. Here are my notes. Okay. We'll do this one and then we'll, I always take such long notes. I don't want to bore you guys. So I hope that you're enjoying the episode so far. Okay. I just want to get the other photos up. Okay, so patriarchal period. I'm going to try and go through the Arab and Muslim empire intelligence gathering services, but they were all very good as well at the time because that is the only way you can maintain your empire, which I think we've talked about enough already. So I'm going to be biased with this one a little bit because the Arab Empire, if you haven't listened to my Dark Ages episode yet, it's an awesome, like, I mean, I'm biased, but I think it's an awesome topic. I think the episode's really good. And it talks about Muhammad. And it's a very fishy story with Muhammad. My opinion, Cliff Notes version, he was invented to like connect these Arabs to overtake which were like growing a lot of power. They needed people to inspire, to build the group around. Because no one even like talked about Muhammad until like 100 years later. The first coin that the first Arab coin was a picture of, it wrote Muhammad, which means chosen one, and it had a picture of Muhammad. Well, a key tenet of Islamic religion is you cannot depict Muhammad. That's why people in France get beheaded for drawing Muhammad cartoons. So why would they put him on a coin if that's the key tenet, right? Chosen one, and he was carrying a cross in this coin, and the cross is an anti-symbol in the Islamic religion. So what makes more sense is it was Jesus, chosen one, carrying the cross, and basically this theory. It's a whole thing. You should listen to the episode, but it's just, I think it's called Dark Ages Were a Lie, I titled it, or something like that. But basically they're saying that this was a heretical sect of Christianity, the Ebonite Arab Muslims. They were like a very militant sect, and they went off past Persia. They were practicing their religion. They marry a princess, and the rest is history. Okay. So let's talk about Muhammad, what they say. Whether that's true, I don't know. Muhammad was born in 570. Everyone was pagan at this time. He marries this rich old widow. What a guy to follow behind. I guess love knows no age, huh? Well, she's so old, she just lets him travel the world because she's rich and just sad, I guess. And he met with Jewish and Christian people as well. Muhammad starts asserting that there is only one God. And then he starts having visions of the angel Gabriel. They started preaching to people, moral, social responsibility, hell, punishment of sinners, stuff that I can get behind, right? I'm not trying to be mean. They have great morals. There is no degeneracy in that. There is, well, they take care of it, right? And I'm not saying that would be perfect here, but they're going, as much as they attack the Christians now in Europe and the West, they'll be coming for them as well in the same way of trying to break down that family unit. Adherents were poor social class, the wealthy opposed. It made him leave the Mecca to go to Medina, claimed he was the last prophet instructed by Allah to purify the belief, which was corrupted by the Jewish religion and then the Christian religion. In 632, Arabia under religious and political command of Muhammad. So if he was real, very powerful, obviously, very, very solid speaker, a true leader, right? National sentiment and religious zeal and possible booty from looting, not booty in the weird sense, booty as in like a pirate booty, attracted his poor adherents. Paradise was promised to those who should fall in the fight for the spread of Islam. It's how you rally people for sure. Conquest of foreign lands was the first task of the caliphs. They subdued Iraq, got new cities. Damascus fell into Arab hands, invaded Egypt, North Africa, and that's why there's Islam in those lands today, right? This was the beginning of the Arab Empire. Damascus as its capital, created an Arab naval force, defeated Byzantine near Alexandria. The previous balance of East and West was destroyed. So again, how could this nomadic camel rider group, and I'm not saying that to be rude, that's what they rode, camels as opposed to horses, were able to conquer the Persian Empire, which was one of the most powerful empires that Byzantine fought against. And that's why this author of this book, who wrote the book in 1975, he obviously doesn't have that theory of that the Dark Ages were made up, but he says it's because this happened because Justinian decreased the postal service. No info was really being gathered because the Christians thought they were like top dog. So that's his explanation. So the Arabs had their new land, 9 areas with different leaders, then like kind of went to 5. They taxed the hell out of non-Arabs and Muslims, like land, poll, drinking tax, married tax, child tax, every single tax you could have, just like we have today. We pay taxes on our income, and we pay taxes when we buy stuff. Then we pay taxes when we make money in the stock market again. So you're taxing my tax money again. Yeah, just horrible. These people, obviously, if they were not, that would give them incentive to convert. They organized their military in the Byzantine style. The only innovation was each tribes had their own group. The first fight over who the rule, it was the same issues we have today. Like there was 3 parties. The poor people, they hated all the government organization. Okay. They sieged Constantinople twice. The Greek fire caused them some issues. The Christians left Syria, settled in Lebanon, which still exists to this day. And that's the Christians that left Syria, went to Lebanon, are supposedly the same people that got the Phoenician knowledge and traded that with it, and that became the Knights Templar secret information. That's also on my Knights Templar episode if you wanted to. But the reason why that author says that they were the ones was because they had like the Sufi, the mystical sect of the Muslim empire. They interacted with the Kabbalah being in Syria and the Talmud and all these things. And they came back because they had to leave because they were Christians and they were more like a heretical set of Christianity. They interacted with the Templars and gave that information. They even used Byzantine titles, methods, organization, used Byzantine architects to build the Dome of the Rock, used the first relay system for information, appointed a ruler of Arabia and Persia. Yeah, they hired like 4,000 spies, intelligence service, secret police. So again, they just had to. The Shiite population was very stubborn. They had a secret police for them. This was cool too. They even had still Christians working in the government body, and they had just learned Arabic, but they kept them because it was such a well-oiled machine of information gathering, the post service, all these things. Pakistan also gets Muslimized during the expansion. North Africa, the Berbers, which were Christians, they get Muslimized. Spain, which you have a lot of Islam in Spain. Across the Pyrenees, they almost made it deep into France. Now they did, but that's because they're, anyway. And they still have the Islamic Empire. At this time, they are already fighting the Shiites, the Sunnis, the same battles they have today about who should belong. Should it be the royal, like the bloodline or the royal line of Muhammad, all this stuff like that. But they have the same issues then. I'm just trying to pick out the good stuff because I don't want to go too long. I don't want to bore you people. I sometimes worry this is like I had this world history class in high school when I didn't at all push myself, and I worry I sound like him for this topic because it's such a long history. Let me see. Okay, so the Caliph Abbas, this was the Abbasid Muslim Empire, 750 to 1258. So during like the beginning of the Crusades, the middle of I guess towards also the end of them. They moved the capital to Baghdad, so that they're moving it, to the Middle East. Let me see what I have here. See if I have any. Okay, yeah, perfect. Here's the Abbasid picture. I don't know if that the other one is it too. Yeah, okay. So they had roads and checkpoints to maintain intelligence through this very large empire. Camel was the most utilized transportation. There was a fast camel post for emergencies. They could do 180 kilometers a day. And I meant to look up what was 180 kilometers, and I forgot. But there was no comparing the Roman roads to the Arab ones. The Romans used stone. Arabs did not. No carriage routes. So they had a system not as efficient as the Romans. I mean, as we all saying, all roads lead to Rome. Their roads for information and information passing with Caesar were top notch. But the postal system was subordinated to the spy system. So this really wasn't for you to send letters to your family. It was more to get information from war and battles. The postmaster was the chief of Arab intelligence. His first duty was to report to the ruler from time to time about any situation, harvest taxes, judge minting, circulation of money. Reports were based on facts from his subordinates. Then he would write a separate report of his findings, but they didn't say. He was called the Eye of the Caliph. And even governors were subjected to spying, which makes sense, right? You want to make sure that this guy you have power to, he's got to watch out. We have to make sure he's loyal. One governor bought a slave girl and was giving her cash, spending day and night with her, and neglecting his duties. And then the last straw was he didn't mention the Caliph's name in a prayer. The postmaster was there when he was saying the prayer. He left, came back with his men to arrest him, and he would have been assassinated, but he died of a stroke. But I just thought that was funny. But yeah, it makes sense. You want to watch your governor, so you set up this spy service that's only loyal to you. They use merchants, like fake merchants that are peddling like crap. Travelers acting as detectives. He even had 1,800 old women working for him. So that was a new thing that hasn't been used yet, was old women spies. The special spies were under a special intelligence director, independent of the postmaster. So you see, it's just like our intelligence organizations today. Usually they were eunuchs. Police headquarters at every large city. The head of the police was appointed by the Caliph. There was public morals in markets. Like you had to make sure that you were at prayers, public morality between male and female. And for the most part, the government left alone the private citizens, the foreigners for the most part. The West was stricter on border control than the East. Egypt, you needed a passport, or you were arrested, your vessel was taken. Now, I talked about the Romans using animals, but the Romans were the first one that started pigeons traveling, especially during sieges. 10th, 11th century, it's like they had 100 men for 100 pigeons, so information of the every hour was sent. So you tie the little thing to like Hogwarts, Hedwig, and send him on his way. Not as much signal by fire in Byzantine, it was mostly these pigeons. But the Arabs did that too. they couldn't maintain their power. Like Egypt was a part of their empire, but basically they just made them sure they say a prayer for the caliphates in Baghdad, and an old powerful family took control. Happened in other places as well. When you have your empire too big without information, you see it just kind of crumbles because people will step up and they'll want that role. This one guy, Fatimid, he was an Egyptian Arab. He said he was descendant of Muhammad's one wife, gained a following, got Cairo, pushed to Syria and elsewhere. He lived in luxury, was a lot of city works like mosques, palaces, and bridges. He employed Jewish practitioners as his financial expert. He had tolerant views to the Jewish religion and Christian, thriving economy. And he used propaganda to get more and more people behind him, spies, secret intelligence, got info on countries that he wanted more support, and would use that, like their issues, he would focus on those. Just really smart guys. All these people, and again, all propaganda. It's just find out what your people are feeling, what they're not, give them something new to focus on, give them something to rally behind. Tactics that I guess they're like more psychological, that we just have a word for now. But look what they do to people in like the Republican Party and the Democrat Party. The left now, it's all, the Delta variant and the anti-vaxxers killing the world. And then the Republican Party, you have like they're stealing your rights, all these things like that. It's a rallying cry to get you to fall in line and ignore probably greater issues. All right, I'm going to skip ahead a little bit of this. I want to go to the Mongol Empire. They were the beast. So I'm just trying to see if they had any. Also in the Arab Empire, they had fire communication during the night, smoke during the day. They had a snow post from Damascus to Cairo. That was wild. They had a luxury service to refresh the Sultan's drink with snow from Damascus to Cairo. So they would ride like all these miles. Let me see if this is it. I don't know. Oh, Damascus, Cairo. You see, if you guys, it's Damascus is like right beneath Cyprus, and Cairo's all the way down here. So they would ride their camel. That's a lot of snow you have to carry before it melts. I don't know how they did that, but that was in the 1300s. Obviously, things aren't going well when your king is living that lavishly. They have some anarchy. They try to get lots of info as well. And the Byzantine, it's like their arch enemy. That makes sense. That was harder because there were Christian settlements in Arab territory that they could cross to, without too much suspicion. But they were so horrible to the Christians, and it made very difficult, obviously, to win them over as spies, or spies at least that want to be working for you. So they had some spies, but it just wasn't as successful as the Byzantine. They didn't like spies, though. They would decapitate them, torture them, inspect merchants, all letters read. Any info on Muslim affairs, they're arrested and sent to Caliph. So again, borders, protecting your borders. If you want to have a good empire, you cannot have open borders. We're past the time of empires. If you want to have a country that can survive, you can't let everyone in. Undesirable population that you can't let in. Criminals, people that will not add anything to your society. You want to be where you're getting like the brain drain to us. And we still have that to a degree, but not as much. Not as much anymore. All right, the Mongol Empire. This is our last one. And I hope you guys enjoyed it so far. I know it was like kind of boring, maybe. I don't know. When I read the book, I liked it a lot. And my next episode, I'm very excited about. But I just hope this episode was all right. I was like worried about. I didn't have like I was almost like embarrassed to do it. I was worried you guys wouldn't like it. But anyway, stop playing my sad violin. Okay. So the Mongol Empire, it was unknown like to the West. They had vague knowledge of anything beyond the Caucasus and the Far East. They actually thought, the Christians in Byzantine thought there was this honorable Christian who lived out there who would help them in the Second Crusade. They call him Prester John. And they thought he already attacked the Saracens. Like their urban legend was like, oh, there's this guy in the Far East, this Christian with armies that are bigger than ours, and they're going to help us fight the Muslims. But obviously they were wrong. They also thought that there was another leader in David of India that was going to attack the army with unparalleled size for the Christians. And there was a leader, but it was not David. Do you guys know who it was? It was Genghis Khan. Genghis Khan. Mongols were very interesting. So this is a good one to end on. We'll end on the Mongols. So he unified the Mongol tribes 1206. He strengthened the army, did his battalions in 10, 100, 1,000 size measurements, 95 battalions of 1,000 people led by one trusted leader, and he had an imperial guard of 10,000. It's a lot of people. No religion but eternal blue sky, which destined his rise to power. And shamans were not allowed to influence political life, which is, so again, this guy was just a natural leader, right? You have to admire that. People view these people in bad terms, maybe because of violence, and not saying they weren't violent, but you have to respect when somebody is able to inspire thousands of people to fight for you, especially in the beginning. How do you get the first person? It is, it's an impressive feat. So he was illiterate. So he captured some young readers, as one would do, to teach the young men in charge of the administration how to read. He changed the laws in 1210, conquering, then attacking northern China like a Mulan, the Huns. And they had China. He breached the wall, attacked North China and Manchuria at multiple points. Then he had Chinese engineers help build his war machine. He made buddies with Turkestan, Afghanistan. This Shah that was he was dominant in the Eastern Muslim world. He wanted him to help. He wanted Genghis to help him displace the Caliph, and he didn't want to do it, but he liked Muslim products that they had. So then the Caliph obtained info about Genghis, and he sent an envoy, and he shaved this guy's head, burned his credentials into his skull, blue dye in the wounds. I don't know what that meant, why they put blue dye in the wounds. And he had to memorize exactly what to say to Genghis, because you don't want to mess up. You want to make a good impression, I guess. And Genghis didn't want to get in the middle of this squabble. He sent spies back with the envoy that the Caliph sent, and got caught in the Shah's land. So they massacred and looted this area. They hurt Genghis's spies. So he did not like that. One guy escaped and ran to dad and said, this kid's picking on me. And he said, saddle up, boys. And he gave an option too. He said, give me the guy in charge of this massacre, and I will let you go. And the Shah did not. And so Havoc was handed out. Very tough dude, right? So very protective of his people. Utilized info from merchants, spies, same tactics as we keep hearing. Super quick. Remember and eventually the great King David, that they thought the Crusades in 1222, the Mongols showed up in Russia, and they learned that urban legend was in fact a lie. So how could a barbarian create such an amazingly powerful, deadly, awesome army, right? How could they do that? They unified tribes and had one of the most powerful empires ever to be on this planet. Let's see, here it is. Look at this. Huge empire. Well, he had good information. That was literally why he was so good. He would gain so much information about the place he was going to fight. He had good commercial relations with China, and he realized the best informers were Muslim merchants, controlled trade between China and Central Asia. They knew the routes. They were good observers, acquainted with the economic and political situation that they were at every day, numerous contacts in all the lands. So he loved the merchants. He would entertain them, he would wine and dine them, getting them drunk, getting as much info as humanly possible. Even like rivalries of powerful people, he would send numerous scouting parties that would precede the main army, probing terrain, observing the movement, report back to HQ, and he would get info about countries even beyond his reach that he wasn't even he was thinking about. He had a 20-year plan, let's say that. Like, he was brilliant guy. Sent 2 to 3 generals with 30,000 men to go conquer the lands beyond the Caspian Sea. He wanted to know all he could about the white race. And such good info, his successors drew up a complete plan how to conquer Europe 3 years after the reconnaissance. Just in 3 years. Like, it would take them 3 years. Like, this guy was unstoppable, right? This guy was unstoppable. And so the one Shah, he knew his neighbor, thought he knew his neighbor. So Genghis sent his envoys there to trade and talk and give bad information. And the Shah was so cocky. He's like, I have fortresses. These are backwater guys on horses, not knowing that Genghis already had Chinese engineers that built some catapults. His forts did not last. Genghis conquered him too. Genghis also knew you always have to be in contact with like your center point, your HQ, no matter where you are. So he made horse post stations along imperial highways, each station a day journey. So with his horses, as many as 20, food and drink for travelers, the random inspections again, taxes, unless it's his messengers. So kind of like the system we saw in the Roman Empire, kind of like the system that we saw weekly in the Byzantines and weekly in the Arabs, or not weekly in the Byzantine, but weekly in the Arabs. Where did he get this information? Like, to do that is obviously how, because he's these tribal communities. I think some people, the author speculated, was from China. Like, they had a post and Genghis just made it better. Mongols stopped in 1260 in Africa by Egypt, and they're from northern, Mongolia. They made it all the way to Africa. So powerful, right? In like 50 years they did that. I can't find the exact, let me see when 1222. So yeah, like 40 years later, they made it all the way to Africa. Crazy, right? They invaded Tibet, ended like one of the Chinese emperor's empires. They continued the postal service. Even Europe got afraid of the Mongols, who were having some infighting. We're almost there. 10 more minutes. I hope it was good again. And Marco Polo will come up too. So Europe, even though they sent 2 spies who were caught on the Mongol border, said they were envoys of the Pope. And the Khan always treated envoys fairly, which was very, like, always. So they got to ride to the headquarters. They said they switched horses 5 to 7 times on the way. Food, horses, supplies, all along the way. They arrived in 3 weeks, which was unheard of at the time. It's like riding a jet to them. They returned to the Pope unsuccessful. The Khan did not know why he should become a Christian. He said he didn't understand that. He was the king. He doesn't need a new king. And that they needed to submit and bring tribute, or he would come knocking. They didn't bring Mongol envoys back because they knew they would be spying in Europe, maybe passing info back to the Genghis, and some back and forth. Mongols said they'd help Christians in Egypt, but because they'll fight the Muslims. But then, so we were going to be about to be allies with the Mongols, dude. I say us, like Europeans. And then Genghis dies, so which is a bummer, because that's a cool fight. Islam versus Christian and Mongol fighters, but his kids were still good. Kublai Khan is like a few generations down, not as powerful as his father, but got everything he made better. The post better, more efficient, more comfortable. That's where Marco Polo comes into the story. He was a merchant with his dad. The Khan wanted 100 well-learned religious men in the sciences for his people. They would get a gold tablet so they could get whatever they needed on the Khan. And again, they had the post plate, the at 1 day travel, a new station. They had silk sheets, luxurious buildings, 300 to 400 horses, even the ones in the mountains in the middle of nowhere. And the stations by lakes had boats, deserts. If it was desert travel, they had plenty of food, horses, water, lights. If it's too dark, they would give you like a thing, horn to make a quick transition when you were getting close. And they know to get ready. The Khan even had runners in villages, 3 miles with the bell on their belt to run and relay for more info. And like they were so fast, they could deliver fresh fruit and veggies from 10 days distance, just running. That's cool, right? So he had the horse post. He also had runners. He had it all. I mean, just very crazy, awesome empire. Here's the Mongol Empire. Look, they went all the way down here in China. They got so far. They're lucky. I don't know why they didn't get Korea. I'm gonna have to look that up. Miss Liv Allen's Korean. I wonder why the Mongols didn't get Korea. Huh. Interesting. If you're not listening, I have the map of Mongolia and China. They did not get Korea and they did not get Japan. I guess Japan because they'd have to sail, but I don't know why they didn't get the Peninsula of Korea. Okay, so this is where it gets back to my one episode with like 18th century maps. So eventually the Mongols, they got a breakdown, okay? They appointed princes, and so eventually you have Muscovite Tartary. Muscovite Tartary was the the 18th century, so 1700 map, it was the largest country in the world. It was like 1.7 million square miles, bigger than anyone. And second biggest one was another Tartary. So Muscovite Tartary, though, he has like, the Khans are kind of gone. Now he has like regional princes, and they appoint these Russian Grand Dukes, all those things. Muscovite Tartary was autocratic. They used the Mongol trainings, techniques, postal, huge power compared to Europe and the West. And it was with Ivan the Great. And he allowed them to practice Christianity, give land for family. They were proud to serve in this country. And he did intelligence lines like the Mongols, sleds, rivers, boats, observed the eating habits of travelers. He learned no pork for Mongols, no alcohol for Muslims. But yeah, this is Peter the Great, and this is how we start Ivan the Great, and this is how we eventually get to the Russian Empire. You have Ivan IV, built over 60 monasteries, wanted to increase trade with Egypt, all these things like that. And I assume that Ivan leads to like Peter the Great, but it all stemmed from the Mongol Empire. So the Russians today, as I'm sure you guys knew that, but they were Muscovite Tartary of the Mongol Empire. They had a secret police. Special envoys were put in special buildings, guards at the windows. Yeah, that's okay. So that's kind of it. So then you're at like the 1500s when Muscovite Tartary, 1565, and that kind of gets you to the 1600s and now, right? So I hope you enjoyed this show. Basically, what I'm trying to say is information is key in any empire. To have information on your populace is probably like number one, and then information on your enemies. Our empire or our leaders, our politicians, they need info on us, and that is why they spy. And they have this was from ancient times to now. Information obviously travels faster than ever, but you need to still know the feelings of your population. You still need propaganda to control them. You still need spies in other countries. You still need corrupt bureaucrats to help get your plans across, corrupt merchants who will sell out their homeland for a quick buck. And I don't know if it's the military intelligence hasn't changed or if the people haven't changed, right? People are just corruptible. So I hope you guys enjoyed the show. I thought it was very interesting. It helped me learn, get a better idea of how this started. It's not a new invention. We've been watched by the top dog forever, and it continues to get more now. Even Japan, which will be a few episodes from now, who were vicious. Oh my God, the Japanese were vicious. But they had spies that were amazing. Dude, they would infiltrated everything. Banks, everything they infiltrated. And there was the same time they had people like double agents and spies. And they're the ones, they created 90% of the heroin in the world in the 1930s. And they just flooded China with it. And what's China doing to us? They flooding us with drugs. So, all right, guys, I'm Jack Allen. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. It might have, I don't know. Send me some comments if you liked it. If not, I read it. I did the notes. I had to do it. I found it interesting. It was helpful for me. Hopefully, it's helpful for you. Hopefully, you enjoyed it. If you want to support the show, conspiracyorjustacoincidence.com. Yeah, leave a review. I'm honored by all the reviews. I'm honored that you listen to the show. And I got my next episode is on the silver market, how it's manipulated, how manipulated is it, how to prepare for our not so certain fiat currency future. I think you guys are really going to enjoy that one. I'm almost done with that. That'll be next Thursday. And the one after that is the American Empire found all of Japan's looting of Asia in billions of dollars worth of gold and used to fund all of our dark projects. All right, guys, so that's it. I really hope you enjoyed it again. I'm Jack Allen from Conspiracy or Just a Coincidence. Follow me on Twitter, follow me on Gab, and thanks for listening, everybody.